it is naturally endowed. So they do it in a very mechanistic, robot-like, specific way for 1,000 years. They will not change. That is not thinking. Thinking is where you do something, you sit back, you look at it, you look at the pros, you look at the cons, and you have the capability, the cognitive mental capacity to improve upon that. Therefore, everything in this world is as a result of two minds. The mind of God, and philosophers believe, they call him the ultimate being, the ultimate reality. He has a mind. That is why a lot of people believe that he's a creator. He creates because he has a mind. And before you create this mobile phone or this staple machine, then this mobile phone was already in the mind. And the photocopy of what is in the mind is what we see, the observable, physical, material things of life. Therefore, it is because of the mind that I have my story building. It is because of the mind that I have my car. It is because of the mind that I have my watch. It is because of the mind that I have my spectacle. So everything in this world is traceable or is traced to the mind. Therefore, if the mind does not know something, it simply means that that thing does not exist. For the mind to think about something, then the first stage has happened. The first stage has happened. The second stage will be the creation. The second thing will be the artifact, the manufacture, the product. Who is now talking over there? Who is talking? I think he's speaking in
Moto G5. Moto G5.
So you don't have
Techno Stack 4. Techno Stack 4, please.
I think he's speaking, the person is speaking Hausa, and it is intruding.
Techno Stack 4.
The person is speaking Hausa and it's intruding. So do I listen? Do I stop the lecture and listen to him?
You are disturbing us.
At this stage, you don't know that one lecture is going on and everybody in the world is listening. You can keep quiet. And then you converse and you call yourself educated people. What is that? So that those of you who are teachers, if you are teaching and you are in the classroom and your child is misbehaving or talking to somebody, then you say that you beat the person. You are the same. You know we have started the lectures, I gave you time, and I'm taking my time to explain things, and you are sitting there, speaking any language, and it's intruding. Don't you know it will be?
Hausa man.
Please, let's continue. So the point that I was making is that the mind is the creator of all material universe. When I talk about material universe, I'm talking about everything that is observable, that is directly observed with our senses. If that is the case, then our life is an upward striving. Upward striving in terms of the fact that we want to enhance the capacities of the mind. We are not so much interested in material things of life, the idealist philosopher. No. The idealist philosopher is profoundly interested in what is in the mind, because it is what is in the mind that will give birth to what we see. So if what is in the mind is not good, what we externally observe would not be good, because the photocopy, the mobile phone that I have here is a carbon copy. It's an imitation. It's a photocopy of the original thing that is in the mind. So if you ask me what is in the mind and what we see, which one is the original? What is in the mind is the first. And therefore, what is in the mind is going to be directly responsible for the artificial universe that we see. So the idealist philosopher is first and foremost and basically primarily concerned with the imaginings, with the constructions of the mind. So that's why we say that all material things, I think you are reading my slide, all anything material could only be explained in terms of the mind. Now I can see you are glued to your set listening to me. If I don't have a mind, I cannot lecture you. If the one who created this laptop didn't have a mind, this laptop couldn't have come. But once it was the mind that created it, then this laptop in its original sense was in the mind. But in its photocopy sense is what we see. So original things are things of the mind. That is why it is very important that these philosophers are interested that when we go to a classroom as teachers, our first and major concentration should be the minds of the student. Because it's the minds of the student that will create cars. It is the mind of the student, because the car is already in the mind. In its spiritual, in its abstract form. What has come out as a physical form is a photocopy, because it was copied from somewhere, and that somewhere is called the mind. Oh, the mind is indispensable, and the mind is thus responsible for anything that we do in this world. Now, so we have to aim high to reach perfect standards. And perfect standards could only be possible only when our minds are ennobled. Our minds are lifted to a level that can create a peaceful world for us. If we live in chaos, if we live in pandemonium, if we live in hybrid system, then it means that our minds are not good, because the product of that chaos, confusion, comes from the mind. So the mind, today, take it from me, is the controller of the universe. The mind is the measure of mind. I don't mind how tall you are or how big you are. What I am mindful of is how far you have trained your mind. And it is on the strength of that that we give you your salary. If you have your first degree, you have trained your mind to a point. If you are very handsome or beautiful young girl, it doesn't matter. It is the mind capacity, and that is summed up in your certificate that we use to pay you. So if somebody has got a PhD, it tells you how far he has trained the mind and therefore can create. If somebody is a professor, we look at the professorship and pay, and the professorship is based on the capacity of the mind. Though in this world, we don't say you are too tall or you are too fine, so we pay you. It's not a physical self. It is the quality of your mind. So the above quotations are the key high points of idealism.
Hello, sir.
So idealism.
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, please, you said the extent to which you train your mind is how you are going to be paid in terms of salary.
So far as the public sector is concerned.
Okay, so what about those who have not been educated but can create things on their own?
Then they will be paid, because once you say create, then it means that they have high capacity in terms of mind. I didn't say those who have been educated. I said that depends on how your mind can get to the standard of your mind. Though if the person didn't go to school, but the standard of their mind is so high, he's going to be rich. It's okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes. So here I'm talking about the development of the mind. But of course, in this modern world, when I come to historical development of education in Ghana, you're going to find out that one of the conduits, one of the palpable, suitable, routes to the training of the mind is schooling. But that is not to say that if somebody didn't go to school, the mind is not working. Somebody might have not gone to school, but through experiences and a lot of things, he is so brainy that he can get a lot of money from the artifacts and the manufactures and the products that he creates. So here, the bottom line is, what is the level of your creativity? And that will give you your prosperity. It's okay. Now, writing in 1972, there is a famous philosopher in Nigeria called Agyen. He was talking about idealism, and listen to the quote, and I'm going to analyze this, that all the material advantages that we have, including cars, including houses, buildings, whatever property that you have, they are useless for the idealist. They are not too important. But the mind, which is the summation of the person's persona or character, and the personality, that is of utmost importance. Though they are not interested in material things, these philosophers, they are interested in training the mind. So, Muslims, I like them for one thing, and I'll come to Christianity. I like them because sometime in the year, all Muslims decide that they want to be idealistic by avoiding material things, food, clothing. They divest themselves of food in order to be so idyllic, relating well to the spiritual world. And don't forget that idealism also has to do with relating well with the mind of God, which is the perfect epitome of perfection, if you like. So your character determines your mind. Your character determines your personality. For them, for the idealist philosophers, the mind and the personality and the character are so important that material things can decay. Material things can be destroyed. But once you have the mind, you can even create better. So the improvement of the mind will give us a peaceful haven to live in this world. I drive Toyota Corolla for my small car, and sometimes I drive my Toyota Highlander. But when I look at the two cars, and I look about 30 years ago, the type of Toyota that is there, this one are superior to that old one. What has caused the superiority? The mind. Is the mind that has improved and revised the old Toyota for us to get the new one. So that's why we say that the old ones are now all destroyed and they are no longer in the system. But because we have the human mind, which is even the smaller mind compared to that of God, then you are going to find out that indeed the mind of the superior world is very, very, very important than the physical material things that we always see. So whatever material advantages that education may give you, the most important thing that you, the teacher, must focus on in idealism is the character of the student. Because the character of the student that will produce and manufacture the world in which we live. Animals don't have that mind. Therefore, they still continue to make the next 1,000 years, million years that they started making the next, best making the is the same thing, because they don't have that cognition that we have. Theirs is robot-like, mechanistic, and based on instinctive tendencies out of spontaneity. It is a natural endowment, and they cannot go left nor right. They cannot change. They are not malleable. They are not flexible. They do it the same way. And I will not accept that as cognition or mental construct that is in line and in consonance with the principles of idealism. So it is extremely important that Jesus said, for what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses? So this is an epitome of idealism. They believe in soul, the spiritual development which is connected to the mind. So it is not that they believe in the physical things of this world. Because after all, what has created the physical thing? The creation of the physical thing is the mind. So why don't let us concentrate on the mind? For the idealist, the mind, the soul, and the metaphysical unseen part of human beings is the most important part of man. All good things, all productions, all manufactures come from the mind, the soul. I'm not surprised. It's not therefore surprising that I gave you this example. When somebody dies, the body will be there, but we throw that person away. Because if the mind is not there, and if the soul is not there, then the body has become useless. So it tells you that the mind, the soul, which are the ideal part of the human being, when they are no longer in operation, we bury the person. The person will not even have life. Life itself, I'm telling you today, is the soul, is the unseen part. And when that goes away, the seen part, the physical part, decays. It gets rotten. So if you have two things, call one physical and call one spiritual. And the spiritual, we call it the ideal part. And the two things are intrinsically connected. And one exits or departs from the other, and the other will be useless. Then let us think of our ideal part. Let us think of our metaphysical part. Develop your spiritualness. Develop your mind. Develop the minds of the student. Let them think critically. That is the ideal. Let them analyze critically. That is the ideal. Let them bring something in the mind. The mind, therefore, is responsible or in charge for the creation of the material world, because everything that we see is a photocopy of the original things of the mind. I take it again. Everything that is material is merely the original. The original is the mind, and everything that we see is a mere photocopy of the original things of the mind. So the mind has the original things, the physical things are photocopies. For us, when we talk about the mind, we are talking about good character. The teacher will have to promote honesty because it's part of the mind and the soul. And when people are honest to the core, they can produce and create. It's a matter of reflection, thinking deep, and meditation. So the idealist philosophers, like Christian, Muslims, Buddhists, are so much into ideal philosophy, idealism. Because in idealism, we promote honesty, which is coming from the mind and the soul. We promote integrity, which also emanates or flows out from or of the mind. Obedience. So when people show these qualities, they are ideal people because they think. Everybody is interested. If you want to marry, you are interested in a man who has these qualities. We call them the ideal qualities. They are the key characteristics of idealism: honesty, integrity, obedience, humility, chastity, keeping your virginity, before marriage. That's why we call chastity, fidelity, going only for your husband or wife, sociability, peace, are all highly promoted and extolled under idealism. Among the Eves in Ghana, they are so much particular about idealism. In my book, I have given quite a lot of examples. The Ewe of Ghana frowns upon bad character and therefore the ideal. The ideal philosopher is not into bad behavior. A thief is not an ideal because he doesn't think well. A corrupt person is not an ideal politician. Somebody who leaks exams to students is not ideal because he is not of integrity. The character is bad. So the Ewe would describe a person like what we have written there. So among the Ewes, for example, strict moral uprightness. So here we're talking about morality as more or less largely under the canopy of idealism. It is significant that perfection of character and right thinking constitute the people of the whole educational process of the indigenous Ghanaian society. Not only the Ewes, all the various groups in Ghana.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Please, in this regard, we are talking about the efficiency, the capability, and the heightened level to which our brains can function, right? Yeah. And I think that as it stands, morality, ethics in society seem to be given a limit or a capping, such that whichever the case somebody, or whichever the way somebody decides to think, if the individual should go beyond the standards or the limits set by morals or ethics of society, it is deemed to be bad. What I want to know is that supposedly, if I can reason to a heightened level and perhaps may go beyond the moral expectation, that which somebody may term to be evil or bad, am I saying because of this limit or capping, I should just find myself within the confines of morality and ethics, such that I would limit my ability or my naturally endowed ability to go to a different level?
That's a very good question. That we have standards that we are supposed to keep in the first place. And the standards will not allow us to think beyond that. Therefore, anybody who thinks beyond that may not be considered as doing the right thing. Is that your question?
Sure.
Is that your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You have done very, very well. People think beyond the standards.
Okay.
And what is a standard? Why do we set standards?
Why do we set standards? Supposedly to ensure that we live harmoniously.
I like that. Beautiful. So if you think... Hello. So if you think beyond the limitations of the ethics... Hello? Those of you talking.
Okay.
Okay,
no, sorry.
But they be asking questions. Right. The one who asked that question, I like that. I mean, it's a fantastic question. I'm very happy that you said that we want to live harmoniously. So assuming that in a particular society, there is a capping, as you said, there is a seal for the right behavior.
Okay.
And you think that we can go beyond that in order to even live better. Nobody will have any qualms with them, but defend your position. Okay. Persuade people. Live by example. And you yourself will raise the standards, and that's what we like. I like your question so much that yes, if you go to a society, there is a prescribed, which means that we cannot think beyond that. No, that's not what we are saying. If your thinking will go beyond the prescribed norms, the ethos, the characteristic spirit, that's what we call ethics. The standard, the yardstick, If your thinking will go beyond that, and that would even liberate the society all the more, then you have set a higher standard that other people must be persuaded to follow suit. It's okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I like that. This is a brilliant, fantastic question that I, in philosophy, have been answering this question all the more. Because once there is a seal, then it presupposes that we have been more or less clipped and we cannot think outside the box.
Yes,
That's not what philosophers are saying. What philosophers are saying is that always set higher standards for the people to imitate that or trying to follow that. So therefore, we don't need to be static or reactionaries. We need to be revolutionaries, not reactionaries. We need to move abreast of time. We don't need to be behind time. And it is very, very important that morality is highly relative and subjective. When I come to a point, I'll explain that. We call it situational ethics. I'll talk about that. But in all cases, the standards that we want to set, because we have an elastic thinking, because we have thought beyond what was considered to be good, and even there is better, then we have the responsibility and uphill task to explain to the people why they should even go high. That is why Plato said that man's life is an upward striving. So don't be complacent and say that I came to meet these standards. My people call it the perfect standards. If you can think critically, systematically, analytically, carefully, and then go beyond that in order to bring peace, harmony, development, sufficiency, competence, then you are a pace setter and others will follow suit. Is it okay now? Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
like
Very
that. Very well explained. Right. So let's continue. So, it's not moving.
black and now for color next.
So now on your screen, you see the main. For the sake of this lecture, I'm giving you the main principles, or if you like, and the salient characteristics and features, the identifying marks of idealism. One, education. So far as we are in education and we are studying philosophy. So for the idealist philosopher, education must develop the cognitive mental capacities. For the idealist, the mind is more important than anything. So maybe the founder of Christianity, Jesus, was an idealist when he said, let this mind be in you, which was Christ Jesus. Paul said that. So Paul didn't say, let this hand be in you, which was in Christ Jesus. He didn't say that, let this eye be in you, but he touched on the most important part of man, the mind. So for us, we are interested in intellectual alertness. Two, education must help the student to imitate the perfection of the ultimate reality. And you know, the ultimate reality is the epitome, the summation, the epitome, the crux of perfection. The zenith of perfection, the peak of perfection. So the student must be made to imitate Kwame Nkrumah, and that is a methodology in idealism, because Kwame Nkrumah did good things that we need people to imitate him. Students must be made to imitate the perfect examples of our leaders and God as the ultimate. So therefore, there is a role modeling philosophy in idealism. Who is your role model? You see, because the moment you say that somebody is a role model, you have set a standard and you want to even imitate a person and even go beyond the good things that he did. Education, 3, must sharpen our moral consciousness knowing that this is good, knowing that this is bad, knowing that this is desirable, accepting that this is undesirable. As a teacher, should I always leak question? This is a moral question. As a teacher, do I go to the class always boozed up or drunk? These are the issues that we need to philosophize. And idealism will say that if it is not desirable, shun it, avoid it, denounce it. If it is desirable, if it is wholesome, if it is of highest quality, pursue it. Christianity, Islam, traditional religion are idealistic religions. They come under the canopy, they come under the umbrella of idealism because of the stress of moral consciousness. Are you morally conscious? And therefore, if you are morally conscious, do you do the right thing at the right time? Would you be able to distinguish and dichotomize or decipher the relationship between what is good, what is bad? And in this case, I always keep on telling people, wherever I lecture in this world, that idealism promotes or sharpens our conscience. So when we talk of idealism, we are talking about your conscience, because it has the tendency of telling you this is good, this is not good. That's morality. This is right, this is not right. This is acceptable, this is not acceptable. This is of standard, this is not of standard. This is a yardstick, this is beyond the yardstick. So these are the things. Education, therefore, must not make students selfish. Selfishness is anti-idealism. They think about the larger interest of the society, not their own interest. And once they think about the welfare, they think about the prosperity and the progress of the society, their own interest will be catered for. Think of America. The Americans will say first before you think of yourself. In Ghana, most of us are not ideal philosophers. Therefore, we think of ourselves first and the nation suffers. There has been a considerable amount of debate as to which one is more important. Thinking about my interest first, and then the nation or my society second, or thinking about my nation or my society first, and that of my personal, parochial, myopic interest. Of course, the debate is ongoing and it's a moot question. The teacher, listen, you are teachers and you are doing philosophy, is closer to God or perfection. Listen, you are close. So when I'm teaching, and instead of listening, you are discussing your own thing, then you are not closer to perfection. You are straight away a role model because you are closer to perfection, and the students through you get to perfection. So therefore, in idealism, the teacher occupies the intermediate position. He links the student to that which of nobility. He links the student to that which is of honesty. He tells the student the acceptable social standards and norms that must be kept punctiliously and meticulously or fastidiously. So the role model, and a gardener, as a gardener, you have a lot of patience. If you have a tomato farm and the farm begins to grow this young tender plant, sometimes when you go to the farm, you put down the cutlass and use your hand. You give it tender care. The students are like that. They are full of weeds. You, the teacher, you are required to remove these weeds and then create an environment that promotes the acquisition of justice, Plato, the acquisition of virtue, Plato, the acquisition of moral uprightness, sobriety. I mean, you want to have people who are in their mood very sober, sobriety, not insobriety, drunkards, alcoholics, armed robbers, thieves. No, idealism doesn't support that. The curriculum of the idealist. What subjects do the idealist concentrate so much? One, language. Because when you think, you need to express communication. Articulate succinctly or clearly your thinking about an issue, your ideas, idealism. Then they believe in scientific skills in the sense that their scientific skills introduce them to the orderliness and the perfection of nature, to enable the student appreciate the wonders of nature and see the hand of, normally God, I call him the perfect order, the holy order. And then again, imitate the forces of nature, the origin of the solar system. For example, to enable him or her appreciate the wonders of nature, and then try to imitate this, to also have the compelling urge, the propensity, the penchant or the proclivity to also create. And this emanates from the mind. They also believe in norms, normal things. When you say this is a norm, it simply means it's normal. It's a standard. It's acceptable. So under normative skills, we are talking about moral issues, proper relationship. And you see, nowadays, Americans are talking about the fact that education should also promote interpersonal relationship. And now this is the modern thrust of education, modern focus of education. So you live well with your neighbors, you establish good rapport, and your personality and your character and your mental fiber or constructs come to the fore so glaringly, so beautifully for people to appreciate that. They also believe in aesthetic skills, beautiful things, appreciation of art, literature, nature, parks, forest system, oceans, skies. They want to appreciate that which is beautiful, which brings the mind to perfection. So, but if you look at the curriculum of the idealist is normally liberal education and the humanities, history, religion, geography, literature, French, English, Ghanaian languages, Bible knowledge, Islamic knowledge. These are the things that they think ennoble the minds. Let us look at what methodology. Now you are going to use methodology to teach. One important methodology of the idealists when they are teaching is to get role models for the students. Students, yes, madam, tomorrow come to school early. Yes, madam, we will come to school early. If you don't come to school, do you know your punishment? Canes. It is not idealistic. Rather, did you see the bank manager? Yes. Did you see the doctor? Yes. Did you see the nurse? Yes. They were always coming to school early. That is why today they are occupying such important position. So if you also come to school early, this is what we call imitation of the ideal. Let them copy that which is good. Let them get personalities. Sometimes when we are teaching history, that's why history is a very good subject in idealist philosophy. You bring Yasantua, you bring Kwame Nkrumah, you bring this, you bring this. Why do we teach history? For them to learn good lessons, their patriotism, their selflessness, their zeal for as a related increased growth. And they believe in asking a lot of questions, the Socratic method. If you ask a lot of questions, you expand the frontiers or the elasticity of the student's mind. Because questions are illuminating. They illuminate, they give us light. Questions make us enlightened and civilized. They don't let their mind sleep. Through questioning, the mind becomes so curious, wanting to discover, wanting to explore, wanting to unearth, and therefore bring knowledge into the human society. Some of the advantages of this method are, the Socratic method are creativity. They create, they are innovative, they are resourceful. If you say a wife is resourceful, you give 10 cedis, and that small amount of money, things that is going to give to you, you will be shocked. But you give 30 cedis to a wife, and nothing will come. It's not resourceful. Now, their methodology still, they believe in project work because it will allow the students to think for themselves. And lecture method, normally they believe that the older, the wiser. They believe that if you have grown and passed through the vicissitudes of life, you have an experience and mental maturation to be able to guide the youth. It has been criticized. Idealism is always talking about only the mental faculties as against the physical faculties. It's not good because sometimes your body too is important. You don't say that you need the mind of the student, the thief can go rotten. You don't say that you need the mind of the student if he doesn't wash or bath down for 3 days and he is thinking right, it's good. So idealism more or less stresses so much on the mind at the expense of the physical faculties. It's also not interested in talking so much about yesterday's experience and so forth because they want you to think, to add to experience. Sometimes it is difficult to attain what they are saying. But if you follow what they are saying, then they say be perfect, no spot. And as human beings, that would be difficult. And then the fact that it emphasizes the humanities, it doesn't look at the vocational and technical education so much and science. And then they don't allow the possibility of errors. Once it is good, you have to do it. You don't have to sin. These are the critique. But now we go to another school. But before I go there, realism, any questions so far? You unmute and then ask your question.